But how does having your own daughters, what do they bring to your process? And also, how do they help you with the characterization of Georgia and your other characters?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think when I started writing this book, my older daughter was only 4, so I wasn't necessarily drawing on who she was then for the character, but I think there's definitely certain things that she'll read it and she'll be like, that's me, that's me, that's me. You took that from me. And I'm like, well, maybe, but not consciously, you know. I mean, it's definitely not her, but certainly like the world of, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids and what they're like. I mean, and now I'm living with one. So it's like the best time ever for me to really reacquaint myself with that age. If, prior to that, I'd be drawing on my own experience and sort of how I remember feeling as a child. And I think that's essentially what, I still would do as a writer, is that I sort of think about how my feelings at that age rather than, using my children's feelings, because I don't really know how they feel inside. I see them from the outside and I can sort of draw on them in terms of external characteristics or interests, but being able to identify even with my own children in terms of how they feel and how they experience life on a moment-to-moment basis, I have to look to myself and remember how it felt to be in that situation. I think that's where empathy comes in parenting, is like understanding what they're feeling and why they might be acting the way they are, thinking the way they are. So I think that's a really kind of interesting aspect of it all, the parenting thing.
Well, that's a very writer thing to do. You said something earlier that interested me that I wanted to follow up on. You mentioned being the third of 4 children put you in the perfect position to be an observer. How so?
Well, I think, my older sisters took up a lot of the air and the space in the room. And so I think, by the time my parents, or maybe all parents, get to a third, they've learned how to be parents, they've practiced, they tend to focus, or I tend to focus on the older siblings a lot. And I think maybe I was a little bit quieter and more introverted by nature. So I got sort of cast into the role of the good one, the easy one, the observer. And, I remember sort of being with like family friends and stuff, or other family members when I was a kid, and they'd all like notice me and be like, she's the one in the corner, like watching this all and taking it all in and like taking notes for the future. And I guess I really was. So that was kind of my role. And I don't know if it's, position in the family. I have noticed with like a lot of other 3rd out of 4 children that I have met over the years that they have a similar, birth order position, in that sense, that it kind of like, you're not the youngest, you're not the oldest, you're not in the middle, because there's 2 in the middle really. So it kind of puts you in this, I don't know, I think it's a nice position to be in.
Were you indeed good and well behaved, or was that cover for the rottenness you were really getting up to?
Well, I was, until my teenage years were a little bit more tumultuous, but I was pretty good and well behaved until then.
Fair enough.